Imagine a moment when the air crackles with anticipation on live television. A seasoned news anchor, known for his calm demeanor, is about to witness something truly unprecedented. The stage is set for a high-stakes political battle, a legal showdown unfolding in real time before millions of viewers. This isn't just a news segment. It's the moment truth collided with power, and the outcome stunned everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Prime News. We're covering a major developing story tonight. Former Trump administration official Kash Patel has filed an $80 million defamation lawsuit against Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, claiming she made false statements about his handling of classified documents that have damaged his reputation and business prospects just hours earlier. Mr. Patel's attorney stood before a bank of microphones, projecting absolute confidence. My client has suffered enormous personal and professional damage from Congresswoman Crockett's malicious falsehoods, the attorney declared. She specifically claimed that Mr. Patel mishandled classified information, which is categorically false. These defamatory statements have cost him consulting contracts, speaking engagements, and damaged his reputation in the national security community. We are seeking $80 million in damages to remedy this deliberate character assassination. Joining us now to respond is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Congresswoman, thank you for being with us on what must be a challenging day for you. Congresswoman Crockett appeared remarkably composed, seated in the Washington studio. A small portfolio folder rested on her lap. Thank you for having me, Michael, she responded, her voice steady. Congresswoman, Mr. Patel is seeking $80 million in damages. He claims your statements about his handling of classified documents have irreparably damaged his reputation. Your response? It was at this moment that Congresswoman Crockett took control of the narrative in a way no one had anticipated. Instead of appearing defensive or concerned, she maintained perfect composure. Before I respond to Mr. Patel's lawsuit, she said, her voice steady and measured, I'd like to share something the American people haven't seen before. She calmly opened the folder on her lap and removed a document with clearly visible classification, markings that had been crossed out, indicating declassification. This is a declassified memo authored by Mr. Patel himself, dated January 15, 2021. It was recently released through proper channels to the House Oversight Committee as part of our investigation into document classification procedures. Within seconds, the studio fell into stunned silence. This wasn't just a congresswoman defending herself against a lawsuit. It was a systematic dismantling of Kash Patel's entire legal case, using his own words against him, broadcast live to millions of Americans. If you want to see more videos where truth prevails against powerful opposition, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The dramatic confrontation witnessed on live television didn't erupt out of nowhere. It was the culmination of a simmering tension, a conflict that had been brewing long before the bombshell lawsuit was ever filed. This clash between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett represents a vivid microcosm of America's increasingly bitter political divide, a chasm between those who fiercely defend the actions of a previous administration and those who demand accountability for decisions made during that period, particularly concerning matters of national security. To understand the stakes, we must first understand the figures at the center of this storm. Kash Patel had carved out a remarkable career in government service, ascending through the ranks with astonishing speed. A legal scholar, having graduated from the University of Richmond and New York Law School, he began as a terrorism prosecutor at the Department of Justice, From there, his rise was meteoric, moving swiftly through various influential national security positions during the Trump administration. His roles included Senior Counsel for the House Intelligence Committee, Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council, Chief of Staff to the Acting Secretary of Defense, and finally, a Principal Deputy to the Director of National Intelligence. Supporters hailed his unwavering loyalty and effectiveness, seeing him as a dedicated public servant. Yet, critics often questioned the speed of his advancement and his role in several controversial policy decisions. What truly set Patel apart, however, wasn't just his government service, but his continued and fervent public defense of the administration's actions after leaving office, especially concerning the highly scrutinized handling of classified documents. Jasmine Crockett, in contrast, followed a very different path to national prominence. A graduate of the University of Houston Law Center, she built a formidable reputation as a civil rights attorney. Her dedication to justice and meticulous preparation became hallmarks of her practice. This background served her well as she transitioned into public service, first elected to the Texas state legislature and then, ultimately, to Congress. Known for her forensic questioning style and deep understanding of complex legal matters, Crockett quickly established herself as a formidable presence on the House Oversight Committee. There, her prosecutorial approach often left witnesses struggling to formulate responses. A testament to her thoroughness and sharp intellect, the direct confrontation that ignited the $80 million lawsuit began during a routine House Oversight Committee hearing. The topic: document classification procedures. While questioning witnesses about proper protocols, Congresswoman Crockett referenced troubling patterns of document mishandling by certain former officials. Crucially, she made specific mention of Patel's public statements regarding the declassification of sensitive materials, highlighting what she saw as inconsistencies. Patel's response was immediate and furious. He appeared on several conservative media outlets, denouncing Crockett's comments as defamatory lies from a partisan hack. He claimed she had falsely accused him of mishandling classified information, causing irreparable damage to his reputation and his burgeoning consulting business. The tension escalated further when Patel published an op-ed in the Washington Times, provocatively titled "The Congressional Defamation Machine." In it, he specifically named Crockett, claiming her statements constituted deliberate lies about my conduct that have cost me lucrative consulting contracts and speaking engagements. Initially, Congresswoman Crockett responded with measured public statements. She noted that her comments had focused on systemic issues, not personal accusations. My concerns relate to established facts about classification procedures, she stated in a brief press release, not personal attacks on Mr. Patel or anyone else. What transformed this typical political dispute into something truly extraordinary was Patel's decision to file a massive headline-grabbing defamation lawsuit. The $80 million complaint, filed in federal court and announced with significant media fanfare, alleged that Crockett had knowingly and maliciously lied about his handling of classified information, claiming her statements had caused irreparable damage to his reputation, business interests, and future employment prospects. Legal experts immediately questioned the lawsuit's viability, pointing to the significant protections afforded to congressional speech under the Constitution's Speech or Debate Clause. This clause shields members of Congress from being questioned in any other place for their legislative acts, a bedrock principle designed to ensure legislative independence. However, Patel's legal team argued that Crockett's statements extended beyond protected legislative activity into the realm of personal defamation. The lawsuit made headlines across all major networks, with Patel appearing on multiple programs to paint himself as the victim of a congressional smear campaign. He projected absolute confidence in his legal position, telling one interviewer, "The evidence is so clear that I expect this to be one of the largest defamation judgments in American history." But what Patel couldn't have known was that while he was making these public pronouncements, Congresswoman Crockett had been methodically gathering documentation. As a diligent member of the House Oversight Committee, she had gained access to recently declassified internal communications that directly contradicted several of Patel's public claims about document handling protocols. When CNN invited her to respond to the lawsuit on their evening broadcast, most political observers expected a standard denial, perhaps an announcement that she was seeking dismissal on constitutional grounds. No one, absolutely no one, anticipated that she would arrive at the studio with a portfolio of documents that would transform a legal dispute into one of the most extraordinary moments in recent political history. The CNN studio lights cast a professional glow as host Michael Sawyer prepared to conduct what he assumed would be a fairly predictable interview. The breaking news graphic flashed across screens nationwide. Breaking: former Trump official sues Congresswoman for $80 million. Michael Sawyer had just asked Congresswoman Crockett for her response to the massive $80 million defamation claim. It was at this moment that Congresswoman Crockett took control of the narrative in a way no one had anticipated. Instead of appearing defensive or concerned, she maintained perfect composure. "Before I respond to Mr. Patel's lawsuit," she said, her voice steady and measured, "I'd like to share something the American people haven't seen before." She calmly opened the portfolio folder on her lap and removed a document with clearly visible classification markings that had been crossed out, indicating This is a declassified memo authored by Mr. Patel himself, dated January 15, 2021. It was recently released through proper channels to the House Oversight Committee as part of our investigation into document classification procedures. The host, Michael Sawyer, leaned forward, clearly not expecting this development. "Congresswoman, can you explain the significance of this document?" "Certainly," Crockett replied. "In this memo, Mr. Patel explicitly acknowledges, and I quote, challenges with the current declassification process that have resulted in unauthorized retention of sensitive materials by departing personnel." He goes on to identify specific instances where documents were improperly removed from secure facilities. Crockett then turned the page. Most significantly, on page 3, Mr. Patel writes, and again, I'm quoting directly, "I have personally observed instances where proper protocols were not followed, potentially compromising sensitive information. Despite my recommendations, certain individuals continue to circumvent established security procedures." The studio fell silent as the implications became clear. Kash Patel had filed an $80 million lawsuit claiming Congresswoman Crockett defamed him by suggesting improper document handling. Yet, his own internal memo, now declassified and held up for national television, acknowledged precisely those concerns. Crockett continued methodically, "I have here a second document, a declassified email exchange between Mr. Patel and White House counsel dated December 30th, 2020. In it, Mr. Patel expresses, quote, serious reservations about the current approach to document removal and warns that current practices may violate established classification protocols." She then looked directly into the metaphorical camera, addressing the audience. "To be absolutely clear, I never accused Mr. Patel personally of mishandling classified documents. My comments in the oversight hearing referenced systemic problems with document handling procedures, the very same concerns Mr. Patel himself documented. In these internal communications, Michael Sawyer, visibly stunned by this turn of events, attempted to regain journalistic footing. Congresswoman, these documents appear quite significant. Have they been authenticated? And why haven't they been made public before? These materials were declassified just last month through the systematic review process that occurs with all presidential records, Crockett explained calmly. They were provided to our committee through proper channels, and their authenticity has been verified by both National Archives personnel and classification authorities. As for why they haven't been public before, they were only recently cleared for public discussion after the declassification review was completed. Then, she removed a third document from her folder. I also have here the transcript from Mr. Patel's own testimony to the House Intelligence Committee in 2022, where he stated under oath, and I quote, "There were legitimate concerns about document handling procedures during the transition period. I raised some of these concerns through appropriate channels. The implications were devastating to Patel's legal claims. His lawsuit alleged Crockett had defamed him by suggesting improper document handling. Yet, his own sworn testimony acknowledged legitimate concerns about exactly that issue." Michael, Crockett continued, Mr. Patel's lawsuit claims I defamed him by raising concerns about document handling. Yet, these records show he privately raised those same concerns himself. This lawsuit isn't about defamation. It's about intimidation. It's an attempt to silence legitimate congressional oversight through legal harassment. The CNN host, clearly recognizing the significance of the moment, pressed further. Congresswoman, Mr. Patel's attorney specifically claimed you accused him personally of mishandling classified information. Did you make such direct accusations? I did not, Crockett firmly stated. During the oversight hearing, I referenced systemic problems with document handling and mentioned that Mr. Patel had made public statements about declassification procedures. Everything I said was factually accurate and within the scope of legitimate congressional oversight. The House maintains official transcripts of all my comments, which anyone is welcome to review. She continued with measured precision. What's particularly troubling about this lawsuit is that Mr. Patel knows, or certainly should know, that members of Congress have constitutional protection for statements made during official proceedings under the speech or debate clause. The Supreme Court has consistently upheld this protection to ensure Congress can perform its oversight function without intimidation. Sawyer nodded, acknowledging the legal weight of her words. That raises an important question. If these protections are so well established, why would Mr. Patel file this lawsuit in the first place? Crockett's response was measured but pointed. I can't speak to Mr. Patel's motivations, but I can tell you the effect. This lawsuit generated significant media coverage, painting me as someone who made false accusations when in reality, I raised the same concerns Mr. Patel himself documented internally. The $80 million figure guarantees headlines, regardless of legal merit. She then reiterated the central evidence. These documents reveal a troubling pattern. Public statements by Mr. Patel claiming perfect adherence to classification procedures, while privately documenting serious concerns about those very procedures. The American people deserve consistency between public claims and private acknowledgments, especially on matters of national security. The interview had completely transformed. What was expected to be a defensive response to a lawsuit became a methodical dismantling of that lawsuit's entire premise, using Patel's own words against him. Congresswoman Crockett had shifted from a defendant to a fact witness in real time on national television. Michael Sawyer, recognizing the historic nature of the interview, asked the obvious question, "Congresswoman, what happens next with this lawsuit given the documents you've revealed tonight?" "My attorneys will file a motion to dismiss based on constitutional protections and indisputable evidence that my statements were both factually accurate and protected congressional speech," Crockett explained. But more importantly, the House Oversight Committee will continue its investigation into document classification procedures to ensure proper protocols are followed in the future, regardless of which party occupies the White House. She closed her folder deliberately. "Michael, this isn't about partisan politics. It's about national security and congressional oversight. When officials make public claims that contradict their private acknowledgments, that discrepancy deserves scrutiny, not $80 million lawsuits attempting to silence legitimate questions." As the segment concluded, it was clear to viewers across America that something extraordinary had just occurred. What had been framed as a congresswoman defending herself against a massive lawsuit had instead revealed a former official whose legal claims were contradicted by his own declassified writings. The implications extended far beyond one lawsuit or one oversight hearing, raising fundamental questions about accountability, transparency, and the lengths to which some would go to avoid scrutiny of their public statements. The impact of Congresswoman Crockett's CNN appearance was immediate and seismic. Within minutes, clips of the interview, highlighting the astonishing revelations, spread like wildfire across social media platforms, garnering millions of views. The hashtag #PATELS memo began trending nationwide as Americans across the political spectrum reacted to the revelation that the very man suing for defamation had privately documented the very concerns he claimed were defamatory when raised by others. In newsrooms across the country, editors scrambled to update headlines. What started the day as former Trump official sues Congresswoman for $80 million rapidly transformed into Congresswoman reveals former official's own memo contradicting his lawsuit claims. By late evening, the narrative had completely flipped. Legal experts quickly weighed in on the implications, their analysis consistent and damning for Patel's case. On one major news network, a former federal judge observed, "I've never seen a defamation case so thoroughly undermined within hours of its filing. These documents don't just create problems with the lawsuit, they essentially demolish its entire premise." Even on more conservative news outlets, legal commentators acknowledged the document's undeniable significance. One conservative legal analyst noted, "If authenticated, these memos create an almost insurmountable challenge for Patel's legal team. You simply cannot claim defamation for someone raising concerns you yourself documented." By the following morning, the story had made front pages nationwide. The Washington Post headline read, "Crockett reveals Patel's own classified concerns, undermining his $80 million lawsuit." The New York Times followed with, "In stunning reversal, Congresswoman's defamation case contradicted by his own declassified memos." At 9:37 a.m., Patel's legal team released a terse statement. "We are reviewing the documents referenced in Congresswoman Crockett's interview and evaluating our next steps." The statement's defensive tone contrasted sharply with the confident press conference held just a day earlier. Legal observers were quick to point out a telling omission. The statement contained no denial of the document's authenticity, a detail that strongly suggested Patel's team had already confirmed they were, indeed, genuine by mid-morning, the political implications began to emerge with unmistakable clarity. Several of Patel's allies, who had initially rushed to support his lawsuit, now maintained a conspicuous silence. Congressional leaders, who had amplified his claims of being defamed, issued no new statements, their social media accounts conspicuously pivoting to unrelated topics. The political winds were visibly shifting. At the White House press briefing, a reporter directly asked about the administration's response to the revelations. The press secretary responded carefully, "While we don't comment on specific litigation, the President believes classified document handling is a serious national security matter that transcends partisan politics. Proper protocols must be followed regardless of administration." It was a subtle but clear signal of non-support for Patel's position. At 2:15 p.m. Congresswoman Crockett held a brief press conference on Capitol Hill, flanked by several colleagues. From the House Oversight Committee, she maintained the same measured tone she had displayed during the CNN interview. "Last night," she began, "I shared declassified documents that provide important context about document handling procedures. Documents authored by the very person now suing me for discussing those procedures. I did this not to embarrass anyone, but because the American people deserve transparency about matters affecting national security," she continued this morning. "My legal team filed a motion to dismiss Mr. Patel's lawsuit based on constitutional protections and the indisputable evidence that my statements were both factually accurate and protected congressional speech. We've also requested sanctions against Mr. Patel and his attorneys for filing what appears to be a frivolous lawsuit, contradicted by evidence they should have known existed." A reporter called out, "Congresswoman, do you expect Patel to withdraw the lawsuit given these revelations?" "That's a decision for Mr. Patel and his legal team," Crockett responded calmly. "What I can tell you is that the House Oversight Committee will continue its investigation into document classification procedures. These declassified memos raised additional questions that deserve thorough examination." Another journalist asked about rumors that Patel was considering a press conference to respond. "Mr. Patel certainly has a right to address these matters publicly," Crockett responded evenly. "If he does, I would suggest focusing on reconciling his public statements with his private acknowledgments, rather than on attacking those who raise legitimate oversight questions." This measured response reinforced Crockett's consistent approach throughout the confrontation, focusing on documented facts rather than engaging in personal attacks or political rhetoric. By late afternoon, the legal community had reached near consensus on the lawsuit's prospects. Professor Alina Montgomery from Harvard Law School told one news outlet, "This case represents an extraordinary self-inflicted wound. Not only is congressional speech constitutionally protected, but the plaintiff's own writings contradict his central claim. I would be surprised if this lawsuit survives preliminary motions." Then, at 4:45 p.m., the other shoe dropped. Judge William Henderson of the Federal District Court for the District of Columbia, who had been assigned the case, issued an unusual order. Given the public disclosure of documents potentially material to this litigation, plaintiff's counsel is ordered to appear for a status conference tomorrow at 10 a.m. to address whether this action should continue. Legal observers immediately recognized the significance. Judges don't typically intervene this quickly unless they see serious problems with the case, noted a former federal prosecutor on another news program. This order suggests Judge Henderson has significant concerns about the lawsuit's viability. The vindication for Congresswoman Crockett extended beyond legal proceedings. By evening, several national security experts, who had initially remained Silent began publicly confirming the legitimacy of her concerns about document handling procedures. A former CIA director wrote in an opinion piece, "The recently declassified memos confirm what many in the intelligence community have long known, that established classification protocols faced unprecedented challenges during the transition period." For Jasmine Crockett personally, the day represented not just political or legal vindication, but the validation of her methodical approach to oversight. Rather than engaging in partisan attacks, she had focused on obtaining and presenting documented evidence, allowing facts rather than rhetoric to address the serious allegations against her. For Jasmine Crockett personally, the day that followed her CNN interview represented not just political or legal vindication, but the profound validation of her methodical approach to oversight. Rather than engaging in the often chaotic world of partisan attacks, she had focused steadfastly on obtaining and presenting documented evidence, allowing facts, not rhetoric, to address the allegations leveled against her. As she finally returned to her office after a grueling day of hearings and meetings, her chief of staff handed her a stack of messages from colleagues across the political spectrum. Several Republican members, while maintaining public silence on the controversy, had privately reached out to express respect for her evidence-based approach. "You know what means the most?" she told her senior staff during their evening briefing. "It's not the headlines or social media buzz. It's that we demonstrated how oversight should work through methodical fact-finding rather than partisan accusations. That's the example I hope resonates beyond a specific case." Indeed, by nightfall, political analysts across networks were describing the confrontation as a masterclass in congressional oversight. Crockett had used declassified documents rather than political talking points to address serious national security concerns while simultaneously defending against legal intimidation. What she had accomplished went far beyond merely defending against one lawsuit or scoring political points. She had demonstrated an approach to accountability that focused on documented facts rather than partisan narratives, allowing the evidence to speak for itself in a way that transcended typical political divisions. The long-term impact of the confrontation between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett continued to unfold in the weeks and months that followed, transforming from a single lawsuit into a watershed moment for congressional oversight, media accountability, and public understanding of classification procedures. The immediate legal resolution came swiftly. The morning after Crockett's revelations, Judge William Henderson convened the scheduled status conference. After just 40 minutes of discussion with Patel's attorneys, the judge emerged with a brief announcement. Counsel has indicated that plaintiff wishes to voluntarily dismiss this action without prejudice. The court grants this request while retaining jurisdiction over potential sanctions motions. Legal experts immediately recognized the significance. Voluntary dismissal without prejudice technically allows refiling later, explained a judicial analyst on a major news network. But practically speaking, this case is dead. Once a plaintiff retreats this quickly after such revelations, resurrection is virtually impossible. 3 days later, Patel himself finally broke his silence through a carefully worded statement. "After consultation with counsel, I have decided not to proceed with litigation at this time. While I maintain that my reputation was damaged by congressional statements, I acknowledge that the recently declassified documents require further context and explanation that is better addressed outside ongoing litigation." The statement's measured tone contrasted sharply with the bombastic lawsuit filing. But the damage to Patel's credibility had been done. Major media outlets that had initially covered his allegations extensively now ran analyses of how quickly his claims had collapsed when confronted with his own writings. For Congress, the incident catalyzed significant reforms to oversight procedures. 2 weeks after the confrontation, the House Oversight Committee held hearings specifically examining document classification procedures across administrations. Rather than devolving into partisan accusations, the hearings focused on systemic improvements, with witnesses from both Republican and Democratic administrations acknowledging the need for more consistent protocols. This bipartisan approach produced concrete results. The Classified Documents Accountability Act passed with support from both parties, establishing clearer procedures for handling sensitive materials during transitions and standardizing practices across administrations. Senator Graham, a conservative Judiciary Committee member, acknowledged during floor debate the recent revelations demonstrated that this isn't a partisan issue. It's a national security issue that transcends politics. Within the legal community, the case became an instant teaching tool. Harvard Law School developed a case study titled Crockett versus Patel, Evidence-Based Responses to Legal Intimidation, examining how documented evidence could effectively counter lawsuits designed to silence legitimate oversight. Law professors noted that Crockett had created a new template for responding to legal threats, one focused on factual documentation rather than merely procedural defenses. For media organizations, the incident prompted serious reflection. Several major outlets that had initially reported Patel's lawsuit claims uncritically, without fully investigating their validity, published analyses of their own coverage. The Columbia Journalism Review's feature article, When Lawsuits Make News, Reporting Allegations versus Verifying Facts, used the Patel-Crockett confrontation as its central case study in how media can inadvertently amplify unsubstantiated legal claims. Perhaps most significantly, the incident transformed public understanding of classification procedures. What had previously been a technical issue, discussed primarily by national security experts, became more accessible to average citizens. News organizations developed explicable pieces detailing proper protocols for handling classified materials, using the declassified memos as illustrative examples of systemic concerns. 6 months after the confrontation, Georgetown University hosted a symposium titled Oversight and Accountability in the Classification System. The event brought together lawmakers, legal experts, media representatives, and national security professionals to discuss the broader implications of what had become known as the Patel precedent. In her keynote address, Congresswoman Crockett reflected on the lessons learned. What began as a personal legal attack evolved into something much more significant, a national conversation about how we handle sensitive information, how we conduct meaningful oversight, and how we respond when legitimate questions are met with legal intimidation. She continued, the most important takeaway isn't about any individual or any single lawsuit. It's about the power of documented evidence over political rhetoric. When oversight is grounded in factual documentation rather than partisan accusations, it builds credibility that transcends political divides. The symposium highlighted how the confrontation had influenced oversight approaches across government. Congressional committees increasingly emphasized obtaining and declassifying documentary evidence before making public statements. Administration officials became more cautious about making public claims that might contradict their private assessments, knowing that eventual declassification could reveal such discrepancies. For the media landscape, the incident's impact was equally profound. The dramatic reversal from official sues Congresswoman for $80 million to official's lawsuit contradicted by his own memos had demonstrated the dangers of reporting legal claims without thoroughly investigating their validity. Major news. Organizations developed new protocols for covering high-profile lawsuits, emphasizing the need to seek documentary evidence rather than simply reporting allegations. Legal experts noted another significant outcome: a marked decrease in what had become known as intimidation lawsuits against congressional representatives. The Patel case had demonstrated the risks of such strategies backfiring when confronted with documented evidence, creating a deterrent effect against similar legal maneuvers. For national security professionals, the confrontation highlighted the critical importance of consistency between public statements and private assessments. Former CIA Director Michael Hayden observed during a national security conference, "The Patel incident reinforced a fundamental principle in matters of classification and national security. Your private acknowledgements must align with your public positions. When they don't, the resulting credibility damage extends beyond any individual to the institutions they represent." 1 year after the CNN interview that had changed everything, the American Bar Association presented Congresswoman Crockett with a Distinguished Oversight Award, recognizing her evidence-based approach to congressional oversight that prioritizes documented facts over political narrative. In her acceptance speech, Crockett emphasized that the award represented validation not personally, but of a methodology that should transcend partisan politics. Effective oversight isn't about scoring political points or generating headlines, she told the assembled legal professionals. It's about methodically gathering evidence, carefully verifying facts, and presenting documented findings in a way that builds credibility with citizens across the political spectrum. She then highlighted the crucial element: this document wasn't powerful because it supported any particular political narrative. It was powerful because it represented a fundamental principle, that in matters of national security and governmental accountability, documented evidence must take precedence over political positioning or personal attacks. For Jasmine Crockett, personally, the aftermath brought both professional recognition and the opportunity to promote a more substantive approach to congressional oversight. As she explained in a lengthy profile for The Atlantic, the confrontation wasn't about winning a political battle or defeating a lawsuit. It was about demonstrating that oversight can be substantive rather than performative when it focuses on documented evidence rather than partisan talking. Points that legacy of the Patel-Crockett confrontation ultimately transcended both individuals to reshape how accountability functions in American democracy, not through rhetorical battles or legal intimidation, but through the methodical presentation of documented evidence that allows citizens to evaluate facts for themselves. Perhaps the most fitting epitaph came from Justice Elena Kagan, who referenced the incident obliquely during a lecture on governmental accountability at Yale Law School. In our system, the most powerful check on authority isn't passionate rhetoric or legal maneuvering. It's documented evidence that reveals contradictions between public positions and private acknowledgements. When faced with their own words, even the most powerful figures must either reconcile those contradictions or lose the credibility on which their influence depends. The story of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel is more than just a legal drama or a political skirmish. It stands as a powerful testament to the triumph of truth and the enduring importance of accountability. In a democratic society, what began as an attempt to silence legitimate congressional oversight through an $80 million lawsuit ultimately became a defining moment, demonstrating the undeniable power of documented evidence to cut through rhetoric and expose facts. It reminds us that genuine oversight requires diligence, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to the truth, even when faced with significant pressure and intimidation. When facts are meticulously gathered, carefully verified, and presented transparently, they possess an inherent power to shape public understanding and hold the influential to account. If you found this story of accountability and evidence-based oversight inspiring, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content that explores the triumph of truth over intimidation. Remember that in a democracy, legitimate oversight requires more than allegations or accusations. It demands documented evidence that allows citizens to evaluate facts for themselves.